joint efforts are needed to safeguard stability in the South China Sea and make it a sea of peace, friendship, and cooperation.
Joining me now for more from Hong Kong is Andrew Leung. He's an independent China strategist. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, sir. Do you think China is trying to dominate the South China Sea?
Well, first of all, you've got to look at it in the bigger context. The South China Sea is only part of the waters of the Asian Pacific. North of the South China Sea, there are the so-called island chains with American military assets in Okinawa, in Guam, and is forming a circle with American assets, military assets, circling China and blocking China's sea lane of communication, which is very important for China's trade and also importation of energy, which is China's lifeblood and which sustains the stability of the Chinese government. So that's why China set great store on the security of the South China Sea. But on the other hand, as China's international trade depends on the South China Sea, which transits most of the world's goods. Therefore, it's in China's interest to keep it free and open. But on the other hand, there are territorial disputes, and of course, the United States is challenging China's claims by mounting the so-called freedom of navigation naval patrols. And of course, it is seen to be very provocative.
Right.
Now, as far as China's neighbors are concerned, the Philippines and other nations, of course, there are some of them have territorial disputes with China. Some do not. And some of the disputes are more serious than others. But on the other hand,
one of the recent ones being between China and the Philippines. And the Philippines Foreign Secretary warned on Thursday that its vessels are covered under a mutual defense treaty with the United States. The U.S. has already said that China's actions towards the Philippines are unacceptable, and China wants the U.S. out, saying it's a regional issue and it has no business there. How important are U.S.-China relations in this region? What does it change for this region?
Well, the South China Sea and also the Asia Pacific is a contested area between the two great world powers, the United States and China. As I said, there is already a kind of containment policy in place, and this kind of containment and confrontation policy is going to intensify. But what I was trying to say is that in the South China Sea, all the Chinese neighbors, even though some of them have territorial disputes, but they want to form very close relationship, economic relationship with China, which is exemplified by the establishment of the so-called regional comprehensive economic partnership, which accounts for a third of the world's GDP and a third of the world's population. So, and indeed, 128 countries around the world, out of 190 countries, have China as the world's largest trading partner. So most of these Chinese neighbors do not want to choose. They do not want to force to choose between the United States and China. Of course, they would guard their territorial integrity very jealously, but they don't want it to jeopardize their close relationship, economic relationship with China. As I said, the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, has already been put in place.
Right, and the U.S. keeps saying it's behind its allies there. Do you think that they'll intervene militarily if it comes to that?
Well, of course, there is a so-called AUKUS, A-R-K-U-S, agreement with Australia, supplying Australia with nuclear-propelled submarines. And of course, the United Kingdom recently conducted patrols with the Queen Elizabeth II aircraft carrier. Of course, that they're going to support the United States as a kind of a containment of China's increasing influence. But of course, if you look at Europe, it's a far, far away place from the South China Sea. So if push come to the show, it's very, very difficult for European countries to really intervene. But of course, they're going to continue to support the United States diplomatically and as well as sending token forces if need be. but I don't think that they would like to be involved in a major war. In fact, a major war between the United States and China would be in no one's interest.
Right, definitely. Independent China strategist Andrew Leung, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour.